And the first presentation, let me introduce Tibor from Boomla.
Hello.
And I let him talk.
All right, thank you. I don't have a speaker. I don't think I need it.
I don't need it either, but...
All right, good.
I just get it.
So, thanks for coming. So this talk is about Boomla, a website operating system. Website operating systems don't exist yet, so this is the first one you will ever see. All right, first I will talk about data structures. Here I'm holding a telephone book. Maybe some of you still remember and recognize it. It contains about 500,000 phone numbers, and you can find any phone number by the person's name in about a minute. But say you have a phone call from a number you don't know, and you want to figure out who called you. It would take about 10,000 times longer to figure out who called you if you take the time to go through it and find the number. So what I want to illustrate with this is that data structures have a huge impact on how our programs work and what we can do and what we can theoretically do, but not in practice. Like nobody's going to look for a phone number in a phone book. Another example here is actually all right, so this is a Boomla website I'm using to show you how Boomla works, by the way. So, I'm pretty sure all of you can solve this little problem and come up with a result. The same problem would not be as easy if we stated the problem like this. The human population could not do multiplications and divisions until Arabic numerals were introduced. So this is another example I want to use to emphasize that data structures we are using greatly impact what we can and cannot do. So this is a reason why it's very interesting and important to see that we are using an extremely complex data structure to build a website. And I want to convince you that there is a better way. And we are not only using databases, we are also using a file system because not everything fits in the database. And then we are also cross-linking them, and it's a mess. So what is the alternative? We could take the properties of both the file system and the database and come up with a new data structure that is kind of like a file system and a database at the same time. That will make web development a lot simpler. So let's talk about web development. Here I have drawn up a table where the first column shows properties of the file system, the second for a database, and the rows are whether you can store large data in them, like huge blobs, like, well, big files, whether it supports hierarchy, structured data, and transactions. And as we will see, these two data storage systems are extremely different. One of them stores big data, the other stores structured data. One of them has hierarchy, the other has transactions. So I was like, I want all of them. Like, not having transactions on the file system leaves tremendous edge cases that we have to cover with code. So essentially every time your data structure is not solving something for you, you have to do the work yourself. So I would rather have smart data structure than have to write and do the work myself and with my programs. So this is Boomla. It's a new kind of file system that has the properties of all of them. So again, it can store large files. It's a file system, so it's hierarchical. It can store structured data like in a database, and it's transactional, fully transactional, so you don't have to work with these nasty issues. One of the first problems we encounter if we start web development is that if we want to create a very simple website, so let's say these are 3 pages, each containing something like just HTML code, how do we map it onto the file system? Because, well, we can't really do without the file system. We need some file system support, we can't really use only a database or, any system that offers a solution like that really uses a file system under the hood. So this is in reality mapped into a file system where we have the root of the project and we are creating an index HTML file, and for every page we are kind of creating an index HTML file. This is a hack. This is a huge hack. Often it doesn't seem like a big deal, but these small cracks in the system add up and make us unable to do a much easier work. So an alternative to that would be to actually map this to a file system that allows storing the data in the exact way we want to present it to our users. Obviously, that we can't do that with a normal file system, because that would mean that this blue thing is a file and a directory at the same time. And we can't do that. So that's very interesting. Let's create a file system that has these properties. From now on, I'm just going to use circles for this new file system. And for the old file system, I'm going to use these folders and file icons. Assets. So imagine this is a web page we want to do. We have some text on it and 2 images. How can we map this in a traditional way? One way is to have kind of an index HTML and we link the assets directly from within the text, within the HTML code, and put the images in an assets directory or something similar and store it in there, and then they are linked. Over time, if we not only want to have one page but loads of them, obviously this assets directory is going to blow up. We'll have loads of files in there. It's a clutter. It's a one-way street. We always add files in there, but we never remove, because who dares to remove and break things, right? We don't know who links there, so better don't touch it. That's the surest way to end up with a system we really hate working with. And I hate working with systems I hate working with. So an alternative approach is to have this root object be our website root or page root, and essentially store these content blocks individually within this file. Well, this is one approach that you can do with Boomla. An alternative approach is if you like this traditional approach, you can still put your HTML code and references in there and link and store the images inside that file. Then you will still end up with a self-contained file. So this page you could grab and put it on another website even. Just like we have a pen drive and we can port files. On the internet we can't really. Now we could again, or can. Contents. So imagine we want a little bit more complex website that has these 4 content areas. That starts to look like a website. How do we do that? So again, the traditional approach is to have one big file, have the references, store it. Actually, you're not storing references here. We are storing the full HTML in there, which is very ugly. So an alternative approach, if you like using your content management system, is to fire up a database, store parts of it in there, and some assets that you need you could store on the file system. So this is again a very complex mess. Or you could go with the Boomla way, again storing each content block in a separate file. And even if they contain multiple assets, they could be stored in the content. So again, they are self-contained, they go with it. No assets directory hell. Imagine a gallery with 3 images. Again, we can store that one gallery object containing 3 image objects. And if you want to change the order of, what if you want to change the order of images in that gallery? So traditionally, we have a database that are mapping these files which come after which one, and we have an order ID field in the database that comes up everywhere. Like, to me, it seems like if there is a field in the database that is everywhere, maybe we should have database support for it and not have to work with that ourselves. So the Boomla file system has native ordering support. So not only are files stored in other files, they are stored in order. So there's no order ID property. Rather, to change the image order, you just swap the files. So they're not alphabetically ordered. Effectively, when you place a file, you are telling the system before or after which other file you are willing to place it. Like if I'm telling you casually something in the pub, hey, you should swap the images. I'm telling you should put the red one after the green one. I'm not saying the red should have an order ID of 2 and the other one of 1, and like, that's nonsense. And we still work with order IDs. So again, here's a huge opportunity for a better data structure. Menu. Let's say we want to have a menu on our website. This is the way we could map it. So the root file is the black one, the nested files are one level lower, and then the green one is the deepest file. So the problem is on the web we can't use file extensions because, for example, with example.com, the extension of example.com would be .com. What file type is that? Is that PHP or what? So obviously we can't use that. It has no meaning on the internet. So every file in Boomla with the extension is stored in an object, and we don't care about the extension. Instead, we are using a file type. It's a property of the file that explains how that file works. And for example, in our file system tree, we could find all the pages that we want to show in the menu by their file types. So for example, the red ones have page type, so we can use this file type to draw up the menu. Again, we have native file system support. We don't need to do table joins and all kinds of mess to get that. It's super simple. And to create a new page, you just create a new object with that given type, and it will automatically show up in the menu. What if we not only want to have one page, but we want to have more of them? And not very unusual situation, right? So for example, the top one has one big green content, the other has 3 smaller green contents. How do we do that? So we could start with creating a template, a theme for our website, and that would contain all the elements of the theme that are common across all the pages. And then we would create a black page object for the entire page instance, and we would link them to that theme by the type property, and that way we could kind of fill in the gap and have only the contents stored on the individual pages inside the individual pages, and be able to centrally manage the theme itself. So that makes it very easy to work with. And this is how an empty page would look like. So if we create a new page, a new file, and set its type, we end up with this structure ready for our contents so that we can add them. Placeholders. Here is an edge case we haven't covered yet. What if we want to have 2 columns and contents in each? Obviously, this structure wouldn't quite do it because we wouldn't know which goes in which placeholder. So Boomla has support for that too. In reality, we are not only storing the children of a file in it like in one box, but there are 256 kind of boxes. You can ignore them if you want and treat it as one box, or you can look at the separate placeholders, and that helps you implement things like 2 or 3 columns, or if you have a theme with various content placeholders, you can map those to these file system placeholders, and then you can still create files in any of them, and they will show up in the right place. So this is how you can think about it. 256 boxes. The very first one, the placeholder 0, is a special one. It's the system placeholder, kind of when you write programs, you put it in placeholder 0. So we don't have a hidden file property because the place of the file decides whether it's hidden, and not some weird file name hack again, as seen with the file extension. Portability, again, on the web, you can't really move files across websites on Boomla because they are just files. You can easily move the 2. And structured data. So far, we have covered that files are a directory and a traditional file at the same time. And there's a third thing, namely files can also store structured data in the form of file attributes. You can essentially say, hey, on this file, I want to create a variable named foo, and it should store bar or whatever you want. So with this, you can draw up a database equivalency structure. So in effect, a database is containing tables, containing rows. You can draw up the same, having a file containing other file for the tables, containing other files with file attributes for the rows. This is just to kind of prove it that because of this, anything you can do on the database, you can also do on the Boomla file system. So it's not necessarily the best way. Obviously, we want to get away from the database. But if you would ask, can I do this? Yes, because of this. All right, so that was about data structures. This is the underlying data structure of the system that makes life so much easier to work with it. So let's go on to fundamentals. Let's compare PHP and JavaScript, because PHP is probably PHP is the most popular programming language on the internet, or most websites are powered by PHP. Let's compare the two, whether they are synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous is blocking, it's much easier to program. Asynchronous is kind of cool, and especially in the JavaScript community, but it makes life extremely simple and it makes hard to work with it, maintain it. There are loads of bugs that you can introduce that way. So I would say that PHP wins hands down because it's synchronous. Like there are async solutions, but they are not widespread, they are just hacks. So anyway, let's say it doesn't really exist. In the JavaScript world, async is the default. Obviously in the browser it is like this, so we accept it and work with it. But the question is like, could we do synchronous on the server and would we want to do? So my take is we absolutely want to do because it's so much easier to work with it. And the architecture of PHP, if you ask me, it's much, much simpler to work with. Yet I kind of like the JavaScript language, or I see its benefits, especially there are so many people who speak it. So Boomla does offer a synchronous JavaScript alternative. So it's not asynchronous, much easier to program. So let's do something concrete. Let's create a website. I'm going to boomla.com. No, not that one. I'm logged in, so I go to Control Panel, Websites. This is a cloud-based service, so you can just sign up and create websites there, or Boomla is also offered as a binary that you can download because so few people were, essentially everyone wanted to use the cloud-based version. So right now, I'm in a backlog of releasing it. So if someone is interested, I would catch up. But right now, it's outdated. So I would suggest you go with the cloud-based version if you want to play with it. And let's create a website. There's a button, Create New Website. Select the theme. Let's pick this one with contents and say Meetup example, yay, and open it. And ta-da, there you go. Here's a website that runs on Boomla. We can also create an empty website. Control panel, websites, empty website. Here is a little link, create new empty file system. Let's say empty demo, open. And this will show nothing. There's an IDE which we can open, and it shows that this is empty.demo.boomla.net. That is the root file, and within it there's nothing. So that's an empty file system. You can start from scratch. It's much better. It's a much better feeling than to start with a project that's already cluttered. So I really like that. All right, let's create a little Hello World app. Traditionally, I want to show you the most simple approach. You would go there and create an index HTML file. Here we would set its file type to, here is where you can say, file name, this is the file body, the first icon, where you can store anything that's in a normal file. And the second one is the file properties and attributes. This is where you set the file type. It can be a built-in type or any path. Title, status code, this is the file attributes, which is like the database equivalency thing. And so here, the type, I want this to be just a static asset. So I say static one, then the file extension here will make the system guess the type. Or you could go explicit and say, actually, I want HTML code. Then you say HTML1. And here you say, hello world, smiley, save it. go back here and nothing happens, now it says the file type is missing for the root file. Yeah, but I'm not interested in this, but in index.html, and it says hello world. So it works. You can create a very simple hello file. Or let me remove this, because the more traditional Boomla approach would be to use the root file and say type is HTML1, and you would say the hello, put the hello in the root file. So this is the natural Boomla way to do it. Okay, back to the presentation. Boomla is object-oriented. So the way object-orientedness is implemented in Boomla, if a request hits the server, so for example, this black thing is the root file. If a request comes in, how do we serve a request? Well, you can create event handlers, which are stored in individual files in them. So for example, the inline method is stored in an individual file, and that will, let me start with the other one. The request will be executed to serve a request, and if you want to have a content within the web page, you would inline it in the page, so it's called inline. These dots and the uppercase letters are system-defined file names. And then if you implement an application this way, again, you can use the type property of other files to point it to this one. You can even make a longer chain. And then those two other files could also serve requests and be inlined into a page. So that's like a prototype chain implemented on the file system. So to show you this, we go back here, and inside this page, let's turn this into a normal application. I open this file properties thing and say its type shall be app1. It's like a class in many object-oriented programming languages, or prototype in JavaScript, or not really prototype. Anyway, so this turns it into an application. And now we go inside it, and here inside it, we create a .request file. I save it, set its type to sjs3. This is our current JavaScript interpreter. There are just a few names, built-in types like this one. It stands for Server JavaScript version 3. We are using these version numbers to not break the old applications in case new ones come out. So I saved it, and inside that, we would say response.body hello world. I save it. And we also have to set the content type. So we say response.attribute string. Now we are setting an attribute of the response file, because in Boomla everything is a file. The request that hits the server is in form of a file. The response is a file, and everything else is a file. And so let's say content type shall be text/HTML. Save it. And now if I refresh this, it should say hello world. Okay, so that's a very simplistic application. All right. Built-in types. If you go to boomla.com, developers, built-in types, you can see there are very few of them. These are like JavaScript, some special meta types for making the system like, anyway, I come back to this later. Application is just for declaring that you have an application there. Some CSS helpers. Image for resizing images, markdown support we have, static files, so just a very few of them. This I close, okay. So what is a page? A page is simply an application that implements the page interface, which means that either it directly has a .page file, it doesn't have to contain anything, it just has to exist, or this page file exists on its type chain, okay? So if we can find the .page file on the type chain, then it's a page. So, for example, this means that we could turn this image, this very image here, and make it show up in the menu. Let's try this. I go back to the one where I'm logged in. Okay, fundamentals, pages. Okay, so I open the IDE here, and we can see this image. Again, I open this, and you can see that's the image on the page. So if I want this to show up in the menu, I go inside it and say I create a .page file. Okay? Refresh this. It's gone, but it doesn't show up here because it's in the wrong placeholder. the menu is only showing things in placeholder 1. If I refresh it, I was changing that of the page, not the image. Try again. No, it uses placeholder 0. Anyway, it shows up. So by creating the proper file and putting it in the right position, it shows up here. We could also use it to, I have some files prepared here. Here's a fridge. I just randomly downloaded it from the internet. So if I go in the IDE and put this PDF, red means it's not type safe. It shouldn't go there, but in the IDE we don't care, so it's just information. For end users, we enforce it. For developers, we don't. So I upload it anyway. It uploads, and I say this PDF shall have a .page file too, and it shall be in placeholder 0. It already is there. So if I refresh, I have a PDF in the menu. And I can open it, and as usual, it will be a PDF file. So this kind of shows how easily you can kind of mix and match things in the system. Okay, contents. Contents, again, simply implement the inline interface. So for example, let's write a hello world program here, new text. I'm just going to change this. I go into contents, that's the page where I come from. There's this text, and I say it shall be an application. We don't need this. And inside this, I create this inline file. It shall be JavaScript. No, type SJS3. And it shall say response.body. This is a content. Refresh, and it says this is a content. But this is not only an application. We can copy and paste it after itself. Now we have a copy of it. Like, these are separate applications. We can go and change one of them, and the other will not change. So it's kind of quite simple, and we can also just drag it to different pages if we want, and we move, and there you go. So it's quite simple to work with. Context menu. The context menu is, you see this icon here. I turn on this highlighter so that you can see like the size of this thing. And this is called the icon. It's a handle to the file. So if I click it, a context menu will show up. And we can also add custom entries here. So for example, let's open this again. And within this image, let's say I want to implement the context menu interface. It has to have type, not title type, context menu 1. And inside, let's say hello. And doesn't need a type right now. The title shall be hello. Come back here, refresh, click the icon, and this is hello. If I click this, I will land on the URL on the hello file, and I could do something with this event. For example, I come back here. Let's go to that page. If I open, this is a gallery containing images. If I click its icon, it offers us things like I can change the aspect ratio of the images, then it will change. Things like that. I could say it should contain 5 images in a row maximum, and then it will reorder it, or 1, and then anyway, you get the idea. So that's the context menu. It makes it very easy to implement custom options for files. Oh yeah, one more thing. You could also have a customize gallery button, which brings us to another page. This is just simply another application that exists at the file where we have created our hello file, and you can put anything in there. So for example, you could say that you can have any application for configuring it right here. I don't want to save it now. Go back to context menu. So that's where we were. Transactional. So the Boomla file system is fully transactional. It either completely succeeds in what it's doing or it doesn't at all. I like to say, well, there's this saying that global is evil. And it's interesting that the file system is a global, right? So we say that global is evil, and we kind of treat the file system like the big guy in the room who is big enough to do evil things, like be global. So Boomla has a different idea about it. So in Boomla programs, every time an application runs, we kind of make a clone of the file system. The application runs on that clone, so the file system is not the global. Essentially, it's an input of the application. Then it can work with the file system, and it returns a different file system. So If it breaks down, then an error is happening. We don't care, because if an error happened, we are not going to commit the working version of the file system onto the previous one, so we are safe. We don't have to do some rollback logic, which we're not doing anyway, but this way we are going to be safe. One example of this is sandboxing. So this application says I'm okay. Let me open the IDE. Here's a demo inline. It says I'm okay. Here it is, I'm okay. But there is a no such function, which let's say we are calling and it doesn't exist, so it will fail. And it will not bring down the entire application. It's running in a sandbox, in an isolated sandbox. So we are going to catch it, and we are going to display the error message. Notice that it's not the full page error message which we are used to. This is just within this application. And it's a first-class citizen. So we could even say, like, copy this application that fails and paste it before itself to have a copy of this error. It's completely normal to have an error. It makes much easier to work with it. For example, we have an undo chain as well, and you could say undo it and fix it. Like, you don't have to go in find some weird way to find a way out. Easy. Okay, cut, copy, paste. I think you have seen it. I've just copied something. So we have cut, copy, paste. It's a file system, no big magic. Sorting. Let me go. Anyway, here's this page sorts. I can just grab it and say place it before pages, and then we will go there. So you can use the icons to sort essentially anything on the file system, because you're sorting files. The file system is stored natively in order. So by moving these on the front end, they move on the back end. Super simple. You could also create a subpage by say, I grab this sort and drop it into pages, and we will end up as a subpage. Pretty cool. All right, I'm going to speed up because so we have undo, redo. Essentially, we have a state of the file system. Every time you make a change, a new state of the file system is created, and another new one. And our active version, if you know Git, it works similarly, but not like Git is an external thing. This is built in, so it's natively part of the system. So essentially, the state of your file system, you have a pointer to it, and when you press undo on the toolbar, you are selecting the previous version, and the previous version, and the next one, and the next one. If you are using redo, it's guaranteed to work. Super simple to use. There are some special files when you write applications. So, for example, when you want to show a menu, like this menu, what you can see is highlighting special files. But how does it know? Like, we have a page that is executing a menu app. How does the menu know, like, which should be active? So there is F, which is essentially like this in other programming languages. It's pointing to the very file that is executing, in this case, the menu itself. There's context, which is like the entire the root of the execution context, which is the page itself. So the menu knows which to highlight by looking at the context variable, which is pointing to this file. And there's request containing all the request variables, response, which you're writing to return something to the visitor, and this is another one I'm not going into now. Applications. In Boomla, applications are files, and they can be stored either inside your website, which we have seen now, or they can be external websites as well. So for example, the black one is our website, and there's an application, the blue one, which we want to install on our own website. How do we go about it? We can do it directly on the file system or on a graphical user interface by importing this website into ours. So essentially, we create a new file into which we want to import it, and then we essentially pin it there. So we will get a copy of this blue file system within ours, and even if the blue one goes down, we don't care because we have a copy, so it can't be damaged. So yeah, effectively there are two files behind each other. Let me show you an example. In this website, this is the root file. There's a sys file for installed things. Sys, and there's apps. These are the installed applications that are installed on this website. For example, there's gallery.boomla.net, which is, let's go there. Well, it's an image gallery, right? You can click it, and it works. So if I go back here, I lost where I was. Help me. All right, there you go. So in gallery, there's a source file. This is the one importing it. Let's open the file properties, and you see link. That's where link is used. So you're linking another file to this one. and it says imports gallery.boomla.net, you don't need the hash. You can save it just like this, and then it will fetch the website, pin it there, and give you the hash so you know the state. If you want to update this app, you simply remove the hash and save it again, because then you will refetch it. So if I reopen this, the hash is there again. It has effectively updated in the background. By the way, if we go to the control panel, you can go, whatever, this is our own website, like the website I just created previously. There's an apps section. So let's install something here. Apps, install this gallery app, install which website, this empty one I have just created. No, let's pick this one with some contents on it. Oh, it's already installed. Okay, let's pick the empty one. Empty demo, it's installed. And after that, websites, empty demo. This is a list of branches, because you can create new branches to work on, which you can access simultaneously. Not like in Git where you have only access once, but like you can just create a new fork essentially of that. Anyway, here's this apps, and you can see gallery.boomla.net installed here. You can also update it by clicking update all, updates, and they are already up to date. Anyway, so there's a graphical interface for doing these things, but you can also do that manually if you want. Okay, go on. Updating apps, I showed it. Type safety. Type safety is essentially, for example, new text. I can drop it here because it works. The system will accept it. I can put it after that, but I can't drop it in there. Because if I would, the system wouldn't know what to do with it. And like a casual user couldn't use the system, because every time they drop things somewhere wrong, it would get lost. So the system is holding your user's hands or your hand. And you can achieve it with an accept file where you can declare for each placeholder what interfaces it requires you to implement to drop something there. I'm not going more into detail here. Customization, I'm leaving that out now. Static files is interesting. Typically, there's the concept of static files, which means the file is not touched, it's just served to the user. I think this is a lie. It doesn't exist, because there's always an application adding, for example, the headers there. So when you say you're serving a static file to the user, you're really saying, I don't care what happens here, please do it for me. I just set the file extension, please do the job for me. So that concept exists in Boomla as well. But you can always get the power back by changing the file type. So if you have an image file, traditionally, for example, Apache would serve it, and you couldn't have a PNG file and run PHP in the background. You would have to rename it. Not in Boomla. You can always change your mind later and change the underlying implementation, because the name does not decide which application is going to run. So Boomla is more powerful in that way, because you can retain the power to change your mind later, and that allows you to move faster, because you don't need to know the future. You don't need to make the decisions right now. Image resizing. So I mentioned there's an app, Image1, which allows you to resize images. Let's open a new tab. Fine. No, this is not what I want. Let's open the image source. Yeah, it's a background image here. Okay, so here you can see there's a width and a height and some mode in here. So you could change that. It has to be an exponent of 2. So I could say the image size should be just 46, and the system will resize it for you. So again, that's something that makes development much easier, because you don't need to do these resizing in some harder way. Central login. So if you create multiple websites on Boomla, you will get a central login system running it. So essentially, if you don't log into a website you created, you log into Boomla. And that way, your browser will be authenticated. Wherever you go within Boomla, you will be authenticated. You can log out, and you have logged out from everywhere. What's even cooler is that you can use that feature to also log out into your friend's website. So you could create collaborative applications on top of Boomla, which is pretty powerful. So let's write some code. Let's see some examples. So first, I'd like to upload a static, complete static project to see you that it works. I'm going to come. This is this empty demo. I want to see what is in there. Okay, within this empty website, I'm going to remove everything there. Cleaned up. And here is a static website I've just downloaded today from some random website on the internet. Let's open this, grab all the files. I've not changed anything. Move it here. Everything is uploaded. And in a couple of seconds, we will have a static project hosted on Boomla. This uploader is built in, so even if you have an empty page, it works everywhere. It's injected into the site, so you don't have to include it yourself and worry about it. All right, so within this, we can find an index.html here and open it. And there you go, a random website hosted on Boomla. So this is like the lowest. We are using almost nothing from Boomla. We could host this elsewhere. I just want to show you that you already know how to use this system. It just gives you more tools. Obviously, here the root file is a little tricky, so we could redirect it with redirect 301. This is one built-in type, and say location string, which is the type, shall be /index.html. And that way, if we go here, we will be redirected, so it then really works. Okay. How can we create editable fields? Because, for example, there is an edit tab in the toolbar, and I can open it, and essentially everything on the page becomes editable, and we can say, wow, this works, and we can rename this. Yay! Save it. Boomla will automatically redirect you in the background, by the way, so the URL changed and we are still here. The page is renamed. So how can we do that for our applications? I don't want the pages to be renamed, so I undo that. So let's see this. Create a new text file here. Go open the IDE. I just created a text file so it goes in the right position for sure. So app1, we don't need the title. Inside it, we create a new inline file. Type JavaScript, SJS3. And here, just try it, p equals nothing, and response.body shall be p. Refresh, it says nothing. Oops, let's say something, it's more interesting. All right, that works. So I want to make this editable. How do we do that? P shall be div, -div, and instead of outputting a hard-coded value, let's use the keyword this, which is f in Boomla. We could say f.body shall be outputted here. And then we go level higher, and in the text, we actually put some body. Oh, it's already there. So we can go and refresh it. So this text, this HTML code will be outputted, but it's still not editable. How can we make it editable? Inline, simply by telling the system it's editable, or it should be. So we say class. There are a few built-in types, like O1. It's always using the O1 prefix or O prefix, content editable. So this means this tag shall contain editable content, and we have to tell the system where it should go when it's being saved, which is in the data O1 content editable equals body. It should go in the body. Refresh, edit, and now we can edit it. Or make some bigger change, save it. It's saved. So it's automatically routed back, and every time you create a content, let's look into the code, you will see that this is the line we have been writing. So this is the content, and that's our data content editable, O1 content editable, etc. It's wrapped in another file, another tag, which says this is a file, and the path is injected here. So that's where Boomla knows where this data should come from. So every time you save it, it will look at this attribute. This is the path. Where shall I save it? In the body, and it will save it back. Edit. This is not formatable because we haven't specified it, so we should enable formatting as well. Data O1 content editable format shall be HTML. So allow HTML formatting, refresh, edit. Now we can make it bold. Save it. There you go. So if you have a simple web page, just by adding these few lines, you get an editable website. Even with drag and drop, you can make a copy of this, paste after, move it to a different one. So quite simple to work with. CSS, we can apply some CSS to this. IDE, let's say I want to format it. I can use, there are various ways to do it. The simplest way is to use the dash prefix. If you say dash div, it means hello system, prefix it for me, because Boomla helps avoid naming conflicts. So if you use dash div, you can create another inline style file here with CSS1, a CSS interpreter, and say, I want to define dash div to be color or have color red. Save, refresh, it will be red. So to illustrate what it means, paste after that it's namespace, if I change, I made a copy of this, so now there are two. If I go in the first and change the side to be not red but blue, it will go properly blue and the other one didn't break. So if we look in the source, you can see there is this prefix injected into both the CSS and the HTML, pairing the two, it works. So this is a CSS. You can change the theme pretty easily. I've included the same images here. I don't want to look into it. So there is an example page here. It's a theme. If we look into it, it implements a page interface so that it will show up in the menu. It implements a request interface containing some HTML code to serve a request, and it has CSS code in a different way with CSS modules. That's an alternative. So this example file is within this theme file. So I go back to theme. See, it looks like that. But let's change its type to not use this central page application, but this example theme, this blue one, which is contained in itself, so we have to write it like that. And if I refresh it, you will see the same content remains, but the page, the theme around it will be swapped to the other one. So it's undo, redo, same content, different theme, super easy to replace it. What are comments? Let's look at some social or collaborative feature. What are comments? So if we wanted to write a comments application, we would have, because the comment block is in the page, it would implement the inline interface, and to have separate instances of that application, we would separate the instance, like the comment instance, from the comment app, and the actual comments would be stored in it, within it. So we could have multiple comment blocks, one on one page, one on the other. So let's go and implement this. New text. Let's open the IDE and say this we are going to turn into comments. It's an application, app1, and within it we create a .inline file which will have type SJS3. And okay, what shall we do here? We want to show a form, and I'm going to cheat to save some time. Source, comments, this one. So first, yeah, that's all the code. I'm going to copy all of it and explain it. So first we show a form which is posting back anything that we submit to the same URL. We show a text area with a prefixed variable name so that we can have multiple comments blocks and they don't collide again. So that's a system. The system helps us have namespaced variable names for avoiding these conflicts. So this is a text area where we can enter the comment, and we simply add a button for sending it. So this will show the form. Then when the user submits the comment app, let me save it and show it first, and maybe then I explain it. Makes maybe more sense. Inline style type CSS1 should be starting to become familiar. These file types I'm using. This is just some CSS, so not as interesting anyway. So let's refresh this. I'm going to delete this gallery because it's not as interesting. So this is just a simple text here, not too much design on it. Hello. Send. So what you can see is that I made the comment in my name. Like, if we just start with a simple website, we don't get user support. Boomla has a built-in user-based kind of feature, so any Boomla user could sign up into your website and they could collaborate. So let me first show you how this works. So when a request is submitted, when I submitted hello, it found on the request file, it found a variable, or sorry, an attribute with this name, because that was the name we used in the form. And because that existed, it said, okay, I will create a new message file inside the comment app. So I'm going to append it as a child with the name message into placeholder 1. And I'm going to put the message into the file's body. So let me refresh this here. And actually, yeah, there is a message file. And the body is hello. Okay? So this is how a new comment is created. And the way it's listed, again, F refers to the comment block. F.query1 returns all the files in placeholder 1. We are reversing the order because we want the latest to be on the top. And then for each, we are iterating on each and simply saying that we want to create a block for each message. This is just for the CSS. We are marking it as a file to, I don't know why I did it anyway. It's for an icon to appear, so we could just drag the message as well if we wanted, or delete it or whatever. And then we can simply say that whoever created that file, we can get the files created by method returns a user object. And we can get an avatar link, which is essentially an image of the user who created that comment. And in the body we show the name. Name link is like name but with a clickable thing. So every user also has an associated homepage. So if I click this, it goes to my website. If you log into that website, make a comment, and I click your name, I will land on your website. So I can learn a little bit about you. So that's how it works. So let me use this other, I have another session in Firefox. So I want to go to this website, actually the entire page, and enter. Okay, I land on this page. If I try to make a comment, it doesn't let me. It says access denied because I haven't joined this website. But there's a button to join this community, so I click this. Yay, I think this feature was released about 20 hours ago. So let me commit this website, demo, and I'm going to publish this onto the meetup.boomla.net website because apparently there's a bug in the system, sorry for that. That doesn't let me join a branch, just the root of the website, because branches are essentially treated as subversions, and I was using it as a different project here. So I'm going to publish it on meetup.boomla.com or net. So back here, we were on write code, comments. So this is the page. Try it again. So I am here. Let's join this. Now it lets me. So join meetup.boomla.net as meetup because that's the name of this account. I go to control panel, profile. You can see the name of this user is meetup. It doesn't have a profile image. By the way, let me add that. There is demo. Here's an orange one so that it looks differently. Okay. Refresh. Anyway, yeah, you can see on the toolbar that I'm here as this orange account. So yeah, join this as meetup. Go to write code, comments. Hi. Too bad. Oh, yeah, it's so new I don't quite remember how it works. Wait a sec. We have requested a sign up here, but it's not approved yet. You can decide whether you let everyone join automatically or you want to approve it. Now it's configured for approval. So I can see there's an active user myself and there's one pending for review. So I come here. Aha, this orange account wants to join, so let's say approve. Now it's approved. Let me try this again. Hello. All right, this is the classic demonstration issue. Anyway, it will work by tomorrow. All right, so I think you can imagine, essentially this is how it will work from tomorrow, how simple it will be to create an application that can be collaborated on. So for example, that was like 20 lines of code. To implement a like button is essentially also the same complexity. You just create new files within that like button that are named by the user's ID. I can show you if you want. I'm sure you want, so I'm going to show it. I just make a copy of that, go into like, I don't need this one, delete, paste into. There's this application, I'm just going to replace the code. So we don't need the message. The code is like.js. This is the code, 20 lines. You don't even need the style, so I'm going to remove it. Refresh, there's a like button. If I click it, what it does is it creates, refresh, it creates with my user ID a new file and counts those files. There is one like, so it says one people like this. If I click it again, it says 0 because the file is removed. And for every user, you can create a new file, and that makes it super easy to implement the like functionality. I think you can fill in the gap with your imagination what kind of things you can build with that. Any kind of collaborative applications, issue trackers, to-do lists, games like chess plays, whatever. You can open source your applications, install those of others. And there is the Boomla.com website, which belongs to the Boomla company. And Boomla.net is a free namespace, so you can create subdomains of it for free and host it on Boomla.com. If you want to have your own website hosted on your own domain, right now we have. Right now it's free. It will be paid someday down the line. I want to make it as cheap as possible so that most people can collaborate on it. Or if you want to host it yourself in single-player mode, because then you don't get these network benefits, you can download Boomla and run it on your own server and work with it. So the business model behind the system is that if you want to have a public domain hosted on Boomla with your domain, and you want to use the collaborative features, then you have to pay some hosting fees. I am looking for people to help me with this project. I'm hiring essentially in various roles. So if you're interested, let me know. And just, if you find it interesting, come find it and talk to me. And I'm open to any questions if you have. All right. In that case, all right.
Because first you showed me your data structure.
Yes.
My first impression was similar like GraphQL. Is it like, do you have many similarities? Like there's nodes and that you can create any kind of relation between the nodes? Is it like GraphQL or
it's
behind?
What is behind it? A custom file system built just for that.
Was it like your... Do you know about GraphQL?
Honestly, I have no idea about it. I have heard the name.
Yeah, because it feels similar because there's like nodes and you can create relationships between them.
Okay. To me, that sounds like...
I think it was developed by Facebook.
All right. I heard of them. Thanks. I'll check it out. Yes?
Can I write real-time applications? If I choose something, other users see the same changes on the other side.
Can I translate it to the problem of if two people are chatting, that it will show up immediately? Okay, right now there is no support built in for that. It's in the short horizon, so it will be completely possible soon. Not today. Okay.
Can I connect with REST interface or which interface can I connect from the outside to this application?
Essentially, because you can write user space programs, you can write your own API.
I can write my API?
Like you can write JavaScript code, so you can. So there's nothing to stop you. Right now, I don't have an API for this. if there is interest, I'm happy to build this into the system. I think in the long term that will be completely, that will be totally necessary, yeah.
And I can change in a file system anything with this API.
First of all, yes, it doesn't exist yet. You can also write it, so I effectively can't stop you from doing it, right? I cannot stop you from doing this because you can program it. Absolutely. Yeah. Any other question? All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Tibor.
Thank you.
When I started developing for web, I started with a notepad. So from that point of view, this is kind of huge leap into the future. I mean, writing HTML code and JavaScript code manually, and compare that way to this one, and I think it's, how to say, from my perspective, it's futuristic.
Okay.
Kind of futuristic. However, it's reality. So thank you for demonstrating this.
Thank you for having me.